Oh, Teresa just
Oh, we're
brought us
back. Thank you so much.
our drinks. They just came in the door. Boy, Thursday isn't thirsty without an Alibaba.
Exactly.
what.
And thank you to our dear friends Chuck and Wendy Noss at Nature's Food Market and Juice Bar. We are so thankful for your support.
We sure are. And, boy,
there's your straw, Don.
why don't you take first sip here? So.
Oh, okay. I'll taste it to make sure it's good.
And again, a shout out to friends in Egypt, Brazil, and Norway today. Just so glad that you're with us, and 19 other countries around the world. So here we go. All right, we growing
delicious.
older without growing old. Tina, take it away.
Yeah, so we've got some great information. I'm looking forward to hearing. We have with us today, for the first time on Open Up, John Garner. So, John, welcome. And, John, let me tell you, John is a senior lifestyle consultant. So please listen up. I know you'll have lots of questions. You can hit us up on Facebook and any other way you can get us if you have any questions about this. So, John, welcome to Open Up.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Tina. It sounds so formal, a senior lifestyle consultant. That just means that I'm a person that's in that mix of things, and I'm willing to talk about it. I was actually up in San Francisco, and I was introduced to a group up there that I was speaking to, and the person that introduced me said, "Oh, and here's John Garner, and we're so thankful that you've come here to talk to our senior citizens." And there was a huge moan in the crowd, and I came up and I said, "First of all, I want to know what the moan is about." So they started peppering me with it. They said, "Well, we don't like to be called seniors.
Oh.
We don't like to be called senior citizens. We don't like to be called the geriatrics. We don't like to be called old people. We don't like to be called," and they went on, and I thought, okay, so, well, you're here. It's like what should we let's agree on something. Let's negotiate this, and we came up with something.
Okay.
And from then on, I've referred to them as the chronologically blessed. And I think that's a way of looking at it that really helps us to understand that we are blessed, and that we are the chronologically blessed. It is never it's never good to get old, but it's always good to get older. Because I mean, the alternative is if you're not getting older, then you're not getting.
What are the good things about getting older?
Well, I think there's a lot of good things about it. I mean, one is just the vitality and I look at it in the four different areas of life: physical, mental, spiritual, and social.
Okay.
And so I look at the positive things in each one of those areas, but first I really would like to explore the idea of what is the difference between getting old and getting older.
Yes, please.
And the definition that I use when I talk to people about this is that the difference between getting old and the definition of getting old is when you have more memories and you dwell with more memories in your life than you do the dreams of your life.
Okay.
And think about the dreams of your life.
You mean the hopes and
where you're going from, and we've all heard this, but I've had most of my life, my adult life, I've been privileged to drive Porsche, and I love the design and the engineering of the Porsche car, and I remember when I first got my first Porsche, I was down in Fort Myers, Florida, and I was driving from Fort Myers to Atlanta, and on the way up I-75 there, they dotted along the way, there's a restaurant called Cracker Barrel.
I remember those.
And Cracker Barrels are unique in that they have a big front porch and a lot of rocking chairs on it. And so I decided to stop at a Cracker Barrel, and I pulled in, and immediately my eyes caught this lady that was looking at me. She was probably 80, mid-80s, late 80s, something along that line. And she was kind of flirtatious.
A flirtatious 80-year-old.
And I got out of my car and I walked towards the restaurant. And as I was walking in, I looked to her and politely said, "Well, hello, how are you doing?" And she goes, "That's not what you want to know."
Oh.
And she said, you want to know how somebody my age can be as happy as I am?
Wow.
And I said, okay, you've got me. And I sat down in a little rocking chair next to her, and I said, tell me why you're as happy as you are. She said, she says, I'm 82. She said, when I turned 75, I decided that I was going to make a list of things I was going to do before I died. Well, we've all heard that, the bucket list.
Right.
Good movie, by the way. But she said that has made my life just vibrant. I said, really? What are some of the things that you've done? She says, I've walked every single one of the stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I've looked at them all. I've walked across the Golden Gate Bridge. I went to the top of the Space Needle in
Seattle.
In Seattle, and I went on the Maid of the Mist underneath the Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
She said I went to the top of the World Trade Center. That was before the World Trade Center.
At 75?
After 75.
Oh.
And then she said I went to the top of the Empire State Building. I've been to the top of the mountain in Georgia, Stone Mountain.
Yes.
She said she said I've just finished riding on an airboat ride in the Everglades.
Wow.
And then she got a little wink in her eye, and she said, and you're going to help me with one of my other things on my list.
Oh.
And I said, I
Riding in a
am.
Porsche, probably.
And she said, I've always wanted to drive a Porsche. I said, well, honey, you just got yourself a ride in a Porsche.
Oh.
She goes, no, I want to drive the Porsche.
Oh my
And so
goodness.
there was a little service road along the side, and I let her drive the Porsche. She got up to about 25 miles an hour, and she pulled over, and she goes, okay, that's it. And
Wow.
but she was check it off.
Oh.
Well, I was telling this group up in San Francisco this story, and afterwards a little lady came up and just buried her fingernails into my arm. She says, I am so excited. Because I realized I have a dream. And she said, and I want to live out that dream in my life. And I said, well, tell me about it. She said, I've always wanted to ride in a hot air balloon.
Oh.
And I said, now that's really interesting. I have a friend that owns a hot air balloon company up in Napa, and we'll arrange for that. And sure enough, within a couple of weeks, we had her in a hot air balloon, and she was riding in the hot air balloon. She died shortly after that, not because she didn't have any more dreams, but it's just neat to be able to see somebody that is living as long as they're breathing.
John, what's your dream?
Oh, what is my dream? I have so many. A lot of my dreams today are being wrapped around my family. My grandchildren are growing up, and they're in their teens and whatever, and so I want to take them places that I have been, and places that will inspire them to see the goodness of God's world. And I took the whole family, my wife and I, we took the whole family, all the children and grandchildren and everybody, got into a big party bus and went to Grand Canyon and spent about a week over in the Grand Canyon. And so it's experiences.
Yeah.
And I think that comes down to really where we're at and what we are trying to see forward.
John, I want to ask you how best in our older age to deal with a dream that dies. And I'm thinking about King David of Israel, who wanted to build the temple. He had all these great accomplishments, but his greatest aspiration was to build the temple. And God's man, Nathan, comes to him and says, go for it. God's with you. And then all of a sudden, God countermands the prophet Nathan's human enthusiasm for David's project and comes back and tells him, you go tell David, you are not the man.
Right.
Not the man.
You are not the
Too much
man.
blood on his hands.
And so he had to deal with becoming a much lesser role in something that he always wanted to do. How do we deal with those kind of setbacks?
You know, I think David is an excellent example because he had a lot of setbacks throughout his life. You know, he was told he was going to be president. He was going to be the king, and then he ended up living in a cave for a while, and just one disappointment after another. But you see that he maintains his well-being because he learns to celebrate everything that was before him. There was a time when the king, one of the enemy kings, captured him and brought him in. He was actually going to be killed in front of the king, and he says, "God," he says, "I know this isn't what you want from me. What should I do?" And he prayed, and God gave him an idea. And he started drooling out of his mouth, and he started acting like he was crazy. And in those days, the people believed that it was like kind of like the measles, that if you were crazy, you could spread it. And so the king says, "Get that man out of here! Get him out of here! Let's And from there, he was ushered out of the city and pushed away, and he wiped off his face, and he went back to his friends and family. He said, "I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth."
All right.
And I think that that's the answer to what you're saying, Don.
All right.
Is that we need to live in thankfulness.
There
We
you
need to
go.
live with thanksgiving.
Yes.
And we may not get everything that we want, but we need to be thankful for everything that we have.
We have to take a break, but I
Excellent.
just want to affirm what you're saying. I worked for 3 years at the Bakersfield Rescue Mission, and there was one common denominator that we could tell if a guy was going to make it or if he wasn't going to make it, and that was if he was grateful. If he was grateful for the bed that was given to him, grateful for the food that was put on his plate. But the guys that grumbled and complained, they just weren't going to make it.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back. We'll be right back with Growing Older, but Not Growing Old.